Hey! Welcome to my cozy corner of the internet. This is Nephilim VA bringing you the 35th chapter of Inheritance written by A is for Amy 71 on AO3. Internships are right around the corner, but who will Izuku choose to go to? Let's find out after the trigger warnings. This fanfiction is for mature audiences with canon-typical violence and a trigger warning for major character death. If that isn't your style, then I recommend Shades of Green, which is written by Maybe Friendly on AO3. It can be found on my channel! Canon Divergence is the name of the game and indulges the what-ifs of Midoriya Izuku having a quirk. With that being said, the chapter summary is as followed. Izuku makes a decision on where to intern. Now I implore you to sit back and relax whilst I read to you. Chapter 35. Izuku's father was equally excited by his son's choice of hero name. That's a great choice. From everything I've gathered, the main problem Japan is facing is that All Might has been the biggest load-bearing pillar holding up our society. When he steps down, it's going to take an army of others to stand up and lead the way into the future. That's what a vanguard does. He leads an army. That was what I was thinking. But then I wondered if it sounded too arrogant. I want to inspire people, but I'm not there yet. I think you're wrong about that, he said. You inspire me every day. I'm sure there are lots of others who see you in the same light, and you just don't recognize it. Now that you've chosen a name, make it your goal, and before you know it, people will be looking to you to lead the way. Izuku knew he'd be discussing this with his therapist, who he really liked now that he'd gotten to know the man. Dr. Fujimori was a good listener, had a keen sense of humor, and didn't tell Izuku how he should feel about anything. Just guided him through sorting out his feelings and determining what was causing some of them. However, the longer Izuku thought about the name, the more he wanted to make his own in every way. He was determined to step up his game and become someone dependable and admirable by the time he became a real pro-hero. I got a call from Sir Night-Eye today, his father said as they washed the evening dishes together. He said that the Might Agency had offered you a real student internship, but that you'd likely also receive a lot of other offers. Oh yeah, Izuku said, drying his hands and going to his room to get the list he'd been given in class. He handed it to his father, who had been drying the dishes and already had dry hands. Take a look. There are some good ones on there, Izuku told him. I'll finish up these. There are only a couple of pans left to wash anyway. Izuku, this is amazing. You have offers from 6 of the top 10 heroes. I know, it's crazy. At first I was thinking I'd just go back with All Might and Sir, but I think it might be good to look into some of the others and see if any of them might be able to teach me something new. You know, step out of my comfort zone. I want to talk to Sir and All Might to see what they think. Izuku finished the dishes and wiped down the counters while his father stood staring at the list intently, mouth moving slightly as he read the list of agency names. There were 5 pages to the list, and 2 columns on each one. It was a lot to look over. I had honestly expected you to just accept All Might's offer immediately, his father said. But this list, there are a lot of options to consider. I don't know if you could do better than the Might Agency, but at the same time you always have access to All Might and Sir even outside of school. That's what I was thinking. Do you think they'd be upset if I went somewhere else? Izuku couldn't imagine they'd be angry, but enduring their disappointment might be even worse. No. They want what's best for you, and they'll know if an agency you're considering would be a good fit or a challenge for you, I'll bet. Talk it over with them. Izuku nodded and retreated to his room. He had to make a choice by the end of the week, and the week was already nearly half over already. thanks to the school shutdown. He messaged All Might to see if it was a good time to talk, and his phone rang immediately. "Midoriya, my boy! I was wondering when I'd hear from you!" Izuku immediately relaxed, just hearing his mentor's friendly voice. He explained his thinking about the internships, and All Might didn't seem upset at all at the idea of Izuku going elsewhere. In fact, he thought it might be a good thing, considering that the villains would expect Izuku to go to my agency, and part of the internship would include going out in public. It might be too tempting for the seemingly unhinged Shigaraki to resist attempting another attack. "Will you and Sir take a look at my list and give me some advice?" Izuku asked. "I have a couple that I'm leaning toward and want to know what you think." Of course! How about tomorrow after school you come back to my tower with me and we can take a look?" Izuku felt a lot better after talking it over with All Might, and better still the next day when Sir agreed with the notion of Izuku doing his student internship elsewhere. "I have extended a few offers to students in 2nd and 3rd year at UA, and I believe that they need far more instruction than you do. Some of them have phenomenal quirks, but need some rather specialized training to really make the most of them. Obviously, since All Might can only appear for an hour each day, the main mentoring would fall to me and the sidekicks to handle." All Might looked a little deflated by this, but they all understood it was not a complaint, but a simple statement. "Actually," Izuku said sheepishly, "I know it's not my place, but—" Both men looked at him with interest. "Go ahead and speak your mind, young man," All Might urged. "I was going to ask if you might consider, possibly, maybe, making an offer to Kachan," Izuku said, afraid to look at them to see their reaction. "You're speaking of Bakugo Katsuki?" Sir clarified, even though Izuku knew full well that he knew who was being talked about. "The boy who bullied you for much of your formative years and attempted to seriously injure you during your first battle training class?" Sir's expression was calm, as was his voice, but it was obvious that he was holding a grudge over Kachan and Izuku's past interactions. All Might looked stunned at the request as well. He's got an amazing quirk, and I think that if he really tried to get his ego under control, he'd make an amazing hero. I don't expect miracles, but all of those lessons and discussions about morals and ethics and everything I got would probably be good for him, and help him understand better what hero work is really about. He's never been in a situation before where he wasn't told that he's great or where he didn't excel at everything he did. He needs help. Izuku realized he'd been talking non-stop and blushed. "I'm not trying to tell you what to do, I just think that if anyone could teach him how to be a decent human being, it would be the two of you. He already idolizes All Might." "Thank you for the suggestion," Sir said slowly. "I can only promise that I'll give it the attention it deserves." Izuku nodded, feeling that he'd at least tried. He wasn't even sure why he thought it would make a difference, just that he knew he needed to try. "Is there anyone else you think might benefit from our infinite wisdom?" Sir asked with an arched eyebrow that held a hint of teasing amusement. Maybe Todoroki Shoto?" "Endeavor's son?" All Might asked with surprise. "Yeah, he seems, off. I think maybe he doesn't have a sense of humor or something." "Do you mean he's broken?" Sir asked with a furrowed brow. "Maybe. He doesn't really show much emotion, but he doesn't seem like a bad guy. He's just flat, I guess. His quirk is half hot, half cold, but he only uses the cold side. I've never seen him do more with his hot side than melt his ice." "Perhaps the cold side is more powerful. Having two opposite elemental quirks in one body is pretty volatile sounding. It might be too much for his system." "Maybe. I guess I can try to ask him about it." Izuku didn't think that would be a comfortable conversation, but it might help the other boy to talk to someone about it. Anything else? Sir asked. Nope, I'm done interfering, Izuku said with a cheeky grin. No corny joke this time? Sir asked. Nah, I had a construction one, but I'm still working on it, Izuku deadpanned. All Might groaned. Let's have a look at your options and decide from there where you want to go, Sir said with a small grin. The meeting that followed involved a lot of notes, a list of goals, pros, cons, safety issues involving Izuku's need for extra security and location all played a part in the process. After a lot of consideration, Izuku made his choice, and All Might promised to do what he could to ensure that he would be safe during the week he was learning from a different mentor. The next day at school, Izuku turned in the form that his father had signed and handed it in to Aizawa, who was there extra early for a change. He looked at the form and raised an eyebrow, but said only one thing. Interesting choice. They only extended one other offer this year, which is 2 more than they usually do. I'll send your acceptance notification so they know to expect you. Izuku was surprised to hear this, and wondered why they made 2 exceptions this year, if they normally never took any. He also wondered who would be interning with him.
Ooh, Midoriya! Did you just hand in your internship papers?
Uraraka asked with a glint of excitement in her eyes. Yep, how about you?
I turned mine in just before I left school yesterday, she said. I'm going to Gunhead's agency. I was so happy to get some good offers after how bad I failed in the last event. I really want to learn some hand-to-hand combat skills. She made a few air punches to punctuate her announcement. Where did you decide on? She asked. A few others in class paused to hear his answer. Oh, I'm going with Endeavor's agency, he said, feeling embarrassed for some reason. Seriously? Kaminari asked, sounding impressed. He's the number 2. I bet All Might's agency only takes kids from 3rd year.
He probably won't take first years, especially since he's our teacher right now, and it might look like favoritism, Kirishima guessed. Congratulations, Midoriya-kun, Yaoyorozu said with a smile. I'm sure you'll learn a lot. The conversation revolved around where everyone was going to intern, but Ka-chan sat at his desk, hunched over, seemingly lost in thought. Hey Bakugo, have you decided where you're going, man? Kirishima called across the room. I'm still narrowing it down, he said, sounding grouchy. Your list was pretty long, Mineta said with a sage nod. I bet it's not an easy choice. I think it's easier this way than it would have been if we had to apply to places and risk having to wait for rejection, Zero said. At least we know that we'll automatically get accepted to the one we choose. Class started shortly after, with Todoroki just barely making it in time. Izuku thought he looked more sullen than usual as he slid into his seat and sat back with his arms crossed across his chest. He did not make eye contact with anyone, even when Yaoyorozu attempted to greet him. The day's announcements basically had to do with expected behaviour while at their internships, things they could expect to encounter, and the fact that their mentor would be giving them an evaluation at the end of the week that would help determine their grade at the end of the semester. In hero training, they went over the second event of the sports festival, where Mineta got excited that Midoriya had grabbed Hagakure right away, and that she had obviously been naked when he did so. Midoriya blushed to the roots of his hair, making everyone tease him a bit, while the girls made it known how disgusting it was that Hagakure's stealthy quirk was reduced to her being a naked girl in Mineta's estimation. Aizawa let the conversation go on for only a few seconds before making eye contact with Mineta and saying, "Strike 1. Mineta visibly paled, and he started to stammer, But, why did they think it's cute that Midoriya...
Because he obviously wasn't copying a feel,
Arshido told him sternly.
He was treating her like a threat and an equal, like he should.
Even the boys were nodding along, though Kaminari looked as though he could sympathize with Mineta. Izuku was still blushing and muttered an apology to Hagakure, just in case he'd touched her anywhere inappropriate. She laughed, and he felt her pat his head in a friendly gesture to let him know that there were no hard feelings. Izuku wasn't sure what Strike 1 meant in this situation, but he could make a good guess. He didn't know what would happen if Mineta ever reached Strike 3, but he hoped for the other boys' sake that he never had to find out. Aizawa didn't seem like the type to mess around. It was interesting to see the others battling to push or throw other participants off of the different stages. Some used clever strategies, while others were opportunistic hunters. Yoarashi had taken one of the top tiers for himself, but the way the stages rotated and revolved around the uppermost platform, he had limited success with his wins. He was still the one to knock the most people off, but as he'd realized that day, he should have started at the bottom, where the highest concentration of bodies ended up at the beginning. He could have used his whirlwinds to pretty much sweep them clean of anyone who didn't have a seriously good grip on something solid. In fact, if he'd used strong enough winds, he might have been able to move the stages as well. Izuku wasn't sure if he was capable of that, though. Ka-chan had been a come-and-get-me kind of fighter, using his strength and explosions to knock people off of the topmost stage and cause havoc on the ones below. He probably would have had a lot more students removed if his stage had been a bit lower, but that wasn't necessarily the point. If his strategy was to stand his ground and simply wait for the others to take out the weakest opponents, then he had been very successful. Anyone who faced him got thrown or blasted to a lower stage, even if they weren't eliminated from the game entirely. Izuku even said as much while the class discussed what caught their eye. No one disagreed with that assessment, and they continued watching, observing a lot of foolish mistakes as those with less situational awareness got eliminated from the game. They made note of how many students had quickly abandoned their provided weapons, and fell back to relying on their quirks to fight. Izuku remembered using 2 simultaneously at the beginning, but then dropping them to improve his mobility. They also commented on the cooperation between a few students, including Uraraka and Izuku, and how it had worked in their favour. They also applauded the way Todoroki kept most attackers at bay by icing up his stage to make it super slippery, and then using the spring end of the weapon to fend off anyone who'd managed to get in its range. Then he used his ice to create a ramp that slid anyone besides him off the stages completely. The moment when Izuku brought his fist down on the stage, the others in the class all made noises of dismay or astonishment. "Did that hurt?" Sato asked him as they watched the end of the stage that Izuku had been standing on dip dangerously low. "Yes," Izuku said with a nod as he thought back. "Yes, it did." Laughter from the others made him grin in embarrassment. It was nice to be in a group of people laughing at him without it being mean or goading. This was good-natured and easy to laugh along with. The end of the event was signalled soon thereafter, and the timing was perfect, because it was nearly time for dismissal. They could finish tomorrow with the flag tag, and Izuku would finally be able to see for himself how it ended. They were all gathering their bags and getting ready for the bell to ring when there was a knock on the door. It slid slowly open a moment later to reveal Principal Nezu, who looked as neat and unruffled as ever as he strode into the room.
"Please pardon my interruption," he said as he approached Aizawa, "but I have just received a rather impressive offer from one of your students, and I thought it should be delivered with utmost haste."
Aizawa took the folded sheet of paper and his eyebrows shot up in a rare show of surprise. "Bakugo," he said, getting everyone's attention. "You've got an offer here from the Might Agency. Thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate all the support you've given me." Izuku chose to do his internship with Endeavor? That was a choice. I wonder who else will be there. I'm back, baby! I definitely learned the hard way that I have to take breaks and look after my voice. I can't be so stubborn. We live and we learn. All credits go to the original creator of this fanfiction, A is for Amy71 on AO3. I'd highly appreciate it if you gave this video a like and you subscribe to the channel and you hit the notification bell to be notified of when I next upload. There is no pressure to do so though. Thank you for visiting my cozy corner of the internet. Keep growing my sunflowers. Mwah!